Hey now, we are getting over, and I am Silver King, Adam Silverstein, here to lead you through these hard times. With episode 793 of your favorite professional wrestling podcast. That's right, Getting Over is back once again, and this will not only serve as your AEW All Out 2025 Ultimate Preview, it is also a full breakdown of the very special NXT Homecoming show that went down this past Tuesday night. We have an absolute ton to get to on this show, as we always do, so let's not waste any further time off the top. Allow the Silver King to remind you that the Getting Over Wrestling podcast
is all about Defy.
So head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. Also, do not forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast. On YouTube, you get full-length audio episodes, full-length video interviews. On Twitter and Blue Sky, you get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights, and all of that good stuff. You can send in questions and comments for the show. You can also vote in pre- and post-show polls surrounding pay-per-views and premium live events. You're going to be able to do that twice on Saturday. First, for AEW All Out early in the day, and then, of course, for WWE WrestlePalooza later in the day. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast. Now, we have a ton to get to on today's show, talking NXT and AEW, as I mentioned.
But I'm afraid I've got some news.
And this is not a segment I had planned for the show, because last week in this space, I said I was not going to make a habit on commenting on what other wrestlers and people involved in wrestling say on interviews. To my utter shock, I got, 12, 15, 20 messages from a lot of you saying that you loved how we talked about such subjects last week and actively wanted us to make a habit of doing that. So while that is not going to be the case, I will not do this regularly. I am willing to do it occasionally when people say things that are perhaps ridiculous. And we'll hit a few of those right here off the top as we get into the show. First, TKO executive Mark Shapiro last week, and maybe Shapiro, I think it's Shapiro, he said last week that WWE is no longer focused on pricing tickets for families, and their dramatic increases have worked out extremely well. To me, this was an incredibly short-sighted comment. Families have been the bread and butter of WWE's audience since the PG turn. WWE in 2025 is not selling out 14,000-seat arenas for Raw and SmackDown because rich singles and couples and corporate partners are buying tickets. Just as is the case with video games and toys, it is the younger demographic that fuels parental spending. Now, I'm not saying WWE increasing its ticket prices is wrong corporately or capitalistically. Clearly, they are still selling hand over fist. They're generating record revenues. However, this is not something you say out loud. I don't care what forum you're at or what show you're on. It's a real bad look for TKO and WWE, and frankly, there should be at least some level of affordable seating so people can lock up tickets to shows beyond waiting until prices, fingers crossed, hopefully drop closer to bell time. There should at least be like 10% of the ticketing for any given show that is affordable for families. And the fact that he would kind of come out and say, F the families that watch our product, which is basically what he said. And by the way, there's still a PG product. It's not like they've turned to TV 14 or TVMA or anything. So they're marketing to kids. And they're basically saying, hey, watch our shows, buy our merchandise on WWE Shop, but yeah, don't worry about going to the events. We're going to price you out. Don't see these people live. That is not the way to do it. And when you talk about WrestleMania and what do they call it? WWE World and those autograph lines and all those special packages they want to sell, that's because kids are begging their families, please, mom, please, dad, let me see Rhea Ripley. I want to meet Rhea Ripley. I want to get her autograph. So what are you talking about, man? Like, really, not a good look at all. Now, Ricochet, in a recent interview, responded to that general sentiment by suggesting that AEW families specifically, priced out of attending WWE, should simply switch over to AEW, which is more affordable. There's two issues with that. First, While AEW tickets are more affordable by and large, they are still incredibly expensive for the shows that people actually want to attend, the pay-per-views. TV airing in these tiny little venues, you can't sell high-priced tickets. But second, what is this dude smoking where he thinks AEW is a product that families should attend? You have your top women's star dropping one sexual innuendo after another left and right, talking about bush and cum and tits and all this stuff. She's getting her box munched in the middle of a match. Women are getting their chests and butts poked with staple guns, which are being used in matches and foreheads and bodies and waists and whatever the case. You have dudes stabbing other dudes with forks so they bleed. Other dudes getting asphyxiated by plastic bags, MJF running around screaming curse words as often as he possibly can. In what way is this product geared towards courting families in any way, shape, or form? That was an absurd suggestion by him. And finally, we talk about absurd individuals. Tony Schiavone. Man, I don't even want to talk about him, but this guy is on some show recently saying, to paraphrase, we should let critics come book an AEW show, see how they do, show them it's not easy, and then they can go F themselves. Now, I'm pretty sure he was referring to like other people in the industry who have made it their gimmick to hate on AEW and everything it does. But if he is suggesting that it's difficult to book AEW better than Tony Khan has been for the vast majority of his tenure, he's fooling himself. As we will detail later on this episode, the booking for All Out has been 50% terrible, 25% solid, and 25% somewhere in between. Week-to-week TV, it is maddening to watch with all the all-star matches and money matches and qualifiers and eliminators. Nothing matters. Half the shows don't have concerted storylines. Booking wrestling is incredibly difficult, which is why when we criticize WWE or AEW, we acknowledge how fan sentiment, injuries, outside factors could certainly play a role in X weird thing or Y oddity happening on screen. That said, I could book AEW better week to week and month to month if I only used the same amount of time I spent watching wrestling and putting this product together. And for those of you who have been listening to this show or other shows I've been on for the last 5 to 7 years,
and you know this, man,
this is a perfect time for the Silver King to remind you that here at Getting Over,
I happen to love the number 5.
and I hope you do as well. For $5 a month, $50 for the entire year, you can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. Again, that is buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. We're a free show. We're an ad-free show. We would greatly appreciate your financial support. All right, let's get out of all that and into our full breakdown of NXT and AEW. There are timestamps in the episode description, so you can jump around if you happen to be here just to listen to the AEW All Out Ultimate Preview on Friday or Saturday. You can skip to that section, but as always, I hope you listen to the entire show. Let's kick it off with NXT, which, as I said, was a special NXT Homecoming show. There was a 5-minute special intro focused on the history of NXT before the original opening montage played, but with new superstars. Could not have been done better. Super nostalgic. Notable, Joe Hendry was part of the package with a nameplate and everything, though his name, as of right now, is not on the WWE Superstars page. The only slightly surprising part about all of this to me was they went with the black and gold aesthetic in the intro, but then reverted to silver and black for the show itself. Other than that, it was a perfect way to get into the special. Something I did forget about Full Sail is that the audio there is completely different, much more hollow, and you can somehow hear individual fans even easier than you do in the WWE Performance Center. The hard cam is also elevated. It's not at eye level. It creates a different vantage point. There was a frequent live from Full Sail University bug in the lower third corner of the screen, the left side. Makes me wonder if maybe WWE got the facility for like promotional use or something. The one item here that would have put this show over the top that they did not do, Mauro Ranallo making an appearance. That to me would have been incredible. As it stands, it was still a very good show. Let's get into breaking it down. Paul Levesque opened saying, "It feels so good to be home at a special place with special fans who are responsible for NXT being stronger than ever." He talked about NXT starting as a whisper, turning into a roar. It was his classic NXT rah-rah speech. that you would hear all the time back in the day, and it was appropriate given the situation. Shawn Michaels came out next, so they put each other over with comedy as usual, with Triple H wondering what he would do, what Shawn would do, if he, Paul, wanted to come back and run the show. So HBK went at him face to face as if they were going to fight, which of course we knew they wouldn't. So suddenly William Regal comes out and he said there's only one way to settle this.
War Games!
Then Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair entered, saying it didn't matter who was in charge, the women run NXT, and if anyone had a problem with that, they had 2 words for them. Suck it, obviously. Did anything that happened after Shawn came out make a shred of sense? Of course not. Was it nostalgic and fun as hell? Of course it was. Given this took 15 minutes plus, I really found myself actively thinking during the show, this should have started at 7 and it should have run for 3 hours, because while the show was great and there was a lot of nostalgia, it did kind of interrupt the flow of what NXT has been under Shawn Michaels, this black and silver version. So let's move to the opening match. Women's Tag Team Championships, Charlotte Flair, Alexa Bliss, defending against Tatum Paxley and Izzy Dame. We saw Lyra Valkyria run up and hug her girl backstage before the match. Lily and Tatum's doll did a showdown at the bell. The champions hit stereo natural selection early. There was a really fun bit between Charlotte and Izzy before Alexa and Tatum went at it. Sean Spears' distraction allowed Paxley to get knees up on Twisted Bliss. She cheated with the ropes for a false finish. Then Tatum hit her finisher on Alexa for a broken fall before missing a 450, eating Bliss's old knockout punch, and then the Sister Abigail DDT for the title retention. Couple clunky parts, but a really fun opener. It's matches like these when WWE main roster talent comes down and it works with people who are still developing, where you can truly see the difference in skill level. It was fine bell to bell. It just didn't really hit for me like I thought it was going to. We had Rhea Ripley, Stephanie Vaquer, and Lyra Valkyria against Fatal Influence. This was the main event. Lyra replaced Tiffany Stratton, who was not medically cleared for the show after injuring herself in the Jade Cargill match. We mentioned that on Tuesday's show. I have no official data on it. I believe she had a concussion and she's being evaluated under concussion protocol, which completely throws a potential match for WrestlePalooza this coming Saturday into the air, because as we prognosticated on the WWE WrestlePalooza Ultimate Preview, it seemed like there might be one more title match for this show or one more match for WrestlePalooza. And now, as we tape this episode of the show, merchandise from Indianapolis has leaked that shows a triple threat with Stratton, Jade Cargill, and Nia Jax on the card. Now, that hasn't been announced, and of course, it won't be announced at the earliest until the Go Home SmackDown. One would assume that, of course, is Friday. So it could still happen, but it's also possible that that's off the show. They need to replace it just entirely based on whether Stratton gets cleared. Regardless, when we're talking about NXT, Lyra was in her spot. Bianca Belair was shown in the front row, didn't do anything. Jasmine Nix made a big mistake smacking Ripley, who razors edged her out of the ring into her teammates. Vaquer got the hot tag, and Booker T hysterically geared up for Devil's Kiss, only for Vaquer to get thwarted trying SVB. Stephanie then ate a seesaw Nix kick, which is Jasmine's finisher, but she kicked out at 2. This is the second time that Jasmine's hit her finisher in like the last month, and someone's just kicked out at 2. Is it no longer her finisher, or are they just no-selling it? Like, that's weird. So Ripley got the next hot tag. She murked JC Jane with a great fall-away slam. And has she adopted Razor Ramon moves beyond even what Damian Priest is doing? Because they both do the Razor's Edge. Priest does it for Razor Ramon. Ripley does it because of Priest, but now she does the fall away slam also? I mean, I'd like to see Priest doing that, actually. Anyway, Ripley and Vaquer then set up for simultaneous Devil's Kisses, pointing at Booker T in what was not only the best moment of the entire night, easily one of the greatest moments in NXT history.
It look good, but she's got me saying, hey now!
I was up all night.
It should have been me. It should have been me.
Vic Joseph was literally fanning Booker T with his papers. It was incredible as a visual. JC tried running away, but Lola Vice chased her back to the ring, back fisting her in the chest before Ripley hit Riptide for the win. The faces all taunted the heels after the bell. This was great. Match of the night for me in terms of entertainment value and delivery. Lyra was a much, much better fit with this team than Tiffy. Unfortunate how it happened, but I seriously preferred her in this spot. Ripley and Vaquer together, I mean, I already played the drops, but they actually looked like they could be a legitimate dominant women's team. The vibes are right between them, and their personalities seem to mesh incredibly well. Jane getting pinned, that was unexpected, but she's been an asshole across the board to her own girls, so getting a level of comeuppance here, that was appropriate. Plus, it shows that she can't win without them. They were taken out of the match. There wasn't much beyond that, of course. That was a symptom of the entire show. 3.75 stars, B+. We had DIY against Trick Mello Gang. Tommaso Ciampa came out to No One Will Survive and basically dressed as Goldie with a gold skull face paint. Johnny Gargano also got to enter to Rebel Heart, much better than their DIY theme. Trick Williams and Carmelo Hayes combined for their catchphrase, with Mello getting his classic Jersey entrance. Johnny and Mello had a really nice sequence ending in a spear through the ropes. Trick went on a run from a hot tag, only for Mello to blind tag himself as Williams was setting up for trick shot. They dapped up, but it looked like Williams was going to turn on him, when instead he took out Gargano before combining with Hayes for a standing springboard doomsday device. Gargano then took first 48 from Hayes before Ciampa took him out with Project Ciampa. Then he hit Trick with Fairy Tale Ending, but Mello saved his former boy from Meat in the Middle. He ate a shatter machine for his efforts, plus Meat in the Middle for a surprise broken fall. I legit thought that was the end of the match. Suddenly, The Miz surprised out of the crowd. He hit skull-crushing finale on Gargano ringside. Mello then flew in with nothing but net, got the win. I should have seen that coming a mile away, yet I did not see that coming at all. I just figured they were going to do a clean match, let DIY get the win, and everyone would move on. I maintain that Mello needs to change his finisher. Maybe if I say it enough, he will, like Stephanie Vaquer did. The match was great. It seemed like they ran 3 different finishes, which made the end a little bit clunky, but the goal was for both sides to come out of it looking strong, which was absolutely accomplished. The biggest surprise here was Vic Joseph. We love Vic. We put him over all the time. He was not good in this match. He didn't sell the false finishes, seemed not to know the name of most of the key moves down the stretch. This is why play-by-play is the toughest and most thankless job, because the dude was great on SmackDown last Friday. Yet his struggles in this match, they stood out more to me. Anyway, the rest of the show was fine. 3.75 stars, B+ here. Grayson Waller effect with Oba Femi and Ricky Saints. Waller called them Oba rated and Ricky soft. Femi said Saints isn't special. He's been underwhelming since he joined NXT because he's been looking past the brand to the main roster just so he can go and carry Cody Rhodes' bags. Damn. Ricky said that's big talk for a pampered athlete who was recruited straight out of college, who would be nothing without that title on his shoulder. Saints recalled trying out getting turned away by WWE 8 years ago, saying it was a delay, not a denial, because he's out there now, he's done waiting, and he's going to be the next champion. Trick interrupted, reminding Oba the NXT title still belongs to him, telling Ricky to mind his business while grown folks are talking. Ricky is like a decade older than both of those guys. Waller suggested they run a title versus title match next week on TV with the winner fighting Saints at No Mercy. Then he referenced a show-long story that was TNA talent talking shit about WWE and NXT on social media during the show, saying the only reason TNA is relevant is because he just said those 3 letters. Oba pulled the mic out of his hand, promised to take the TNA title, and then later defend both before pulling off Waller's own catchphrase. This is the Oba Femi rub. Later backstage, Oba and Trick went face-to-face. Regal said he didn't envy Ava's job, and the match was made official for next week. Saints was back to his fiery self with this promo. Man was shot out of a cannon. I really liked both of their lines, but interestingly, the Full Sail crowd really did not respond as well as I believe the Performance Center crowd would have. It's almost like they were on their phones not paying attention or something like that. To me, this was a super successful segment, but the random title versus title booking, just throwing that on TV with a 1-week build when that's a bigger match than what's actually scheduled for No Mercy, that did not make one iota of sense as it was put out there. Now, I presume the move is going to be a TNA invasion during the match. They prevent the title from changing hands. They go after both guys. Either that or there's some type of like disqualification, double count out, whatever, because it would make even less sense to make one of these guys double champion right now. Not when there's so many other wrestlers on both brands who can hold the straps. So while this did work for me overall, I did believe some of the parts individually were a bit odd. Sami Zayn backstage was emotional being back at Full Sail. He shouted out his NXT title win over Neville, saying he feels like there's a lot of potential in NXT these days, specifically pointing out Javon Evans as the future. Josh Briggs confronted Zayn, saying Evans is nothing but a bum, which led to an immediate brawl. Sammy pulled Javon off, gassing him up as an underdog like him, who has a huge future, only the sky being his limit. Nice little segment to put Evans over. They've been doing a great job building him bit by bit with the NXT title clearly in his future. The way Javon looked at the United States Championship in this segment, maybe we see him on SmackDown at some point over the next month, just for an open challenge, and it goes back to NXT. But I would love, love, love to see Javon show up. Maybe the SmackDown after WrestlePalooza. That would be great. North American Championship, Ethan Page defending against Tyler Breeze. Page at Confidence Breaker and Ego's Edge for a false finish. Dr. Wagner Tresero was shown ringside before Breeze did a figure four around the ring post. Breeze then escaped Twisted Grin, but trapped Page's head for a super kick and a spinning heel kick. Page ultimately caught him on the top rope, hitting a draping Twisted Grin to retain the title. I believe that's also called Tower of London. There was no storyline going in, and really nothing much happened in the match. It was well wrestled. Wagner showing up, taunting Page after the bell, seems to be building toward a title versus title match, possibly as soon as No Mercy, I would guess. That's interesting. Damian Priest came up to Tavian Heights telling him that he's so close to reaching the next level. Priest recalled his match with Finn Balor, winning the North American title after that, being when everything finally clicked for him. Then he told Heights that he spoke to Ava, got him a title match at No Mercy. And then the segment ended with Heights asking for further advice. It was interesting how Priest did not get anywhere near as loud a reaction as some others who showed up. Giving some of the rub to Heights was a positive, obviously. We knew the title match was coming one way or another, so Priest getting it made is a bunch of whatever. Zaruka argued backstage about the Soul Snatcher from last week and Zarya's prior accidental spears when Lainey Reed interrupted, and then, Candice LeRae followed, both getting in her grill about winning the WWE Speed Tournament and facing her for the title at No Mercy. Again, she's North American champion, but they care about the Speed title. Then Shayna Baszler came through, lending advice to Zaruka, telling them to fix their relationship before it's too late, and they'll get everything they want. It looked like Solruka added more ink to her right arm, which you do you. It was pretty distracting, almost like a full sleeve now. Zarya certainly had no leg to stand on here, getting angry about one Soul Snatcher given the aforementioned spears, and she still seemed a bit perturbed when the whole thing ended. Baszler popping in for the first time since her talent release, that was great to see. I know she produced at least one or a couple matches for NXT backstage at the WWE Performance Center. I don't know if she's there full time, but I hope she is. I hope she's fully employed and working with them because she is someone that the women in NXT can learn from, undoubtedly. But look, despite all that positive that I just said, you know where I'm going with this. You gotta stop trying to make Lainey Reed happen. She's not going to happen.
Stop trying to make fetch happen. It's not going to happen.
Plus, did they just drop her involvement with Fatal Influence? Wasn't she trying to wedge drive them? Lexis King opened the final half hour saying Black and Gold NXT was overrated. It doesn't hold up to what they've been doing in 2025. And the stars from that era have completely moved on. King then went off about Miles Bourne attacking him in the darkness, announcing that he's got a lights out match made for next week. Just then, Finn Balor entered to catch your breath, among the greatest themes of the WWE modern era, as far as I am concerned. The extended entrance was all the distraction for Bourne to attack from behind before Balor hit coup de grace and revealed a towel that said Homecoming Prince instead of King. Really nice touch. Bourne got to do the arm gesture with him. I came out of this laughing to myself, thinking that Bourne would actually work in Judgment Day. He's the perfect mix of talent, gimmick, shtick. Not a heel, obviously, but he'd play really well with them. Fun return of Balor in a surprise spot. I truly wish this is the guy we were getting on the main roster. I just need one full run of this Balor, ideally for the World Heavyweight Championship. Just one. I don't think it's that much to ask.
You don't give a damn. And my problem is I care too much.
Ren Sinclair backstage told Charlie Dempsey they clearly needed a fresh start one way or another. Dempsey said they just needed to refocus. He's going to Japan for a month to do exactly that. Bobby Roode then walked in, and he paused for a pop. But WWE either didn't feed the segment into the Titantron so that way the fans could respond, or they didn't turn the audio on. So he's standing there listening as if someone's popping for him, and it's just silence. Then Glorious played when he did the gesture, which Ren compared to Joe Hendry, who obviously appeared as soon as she said his name. Sinclair was starstruck watching Roode and Hendry interact. Bobby told Joe it was time for him to focus on the NXT title now that he's on the brand. It ended with Dempsey telling Sinclair not to do anything he wouldn't do. Let me just make something very clear. NXT better not take this woman off TV for a month while he's in Japan. She should be working nearly every single week in matches or substantial storyline segments, something. So I hope we get plenty of RenXT over the next 4 weeks. Not letting Rude do his actual entrance in front of the crowd was a massive miss. And I'm super confused about Hendry, right? Like, he's in the show intro. They're saying he's in NXT, but he's not on the WWE roster. He's still on the TNA roster. So it seems like he's being faded out of TNA into WWE, but wouldn't you want it to be a situation like Jordan Grace where he goes away from one, shows up in the other, and it's like this guy is now signed to the company? Like, is TNA paying him while he's starting in NXT? I'm just perplexed at what's going on with this dude. Dark State backstage cut off a potential mention of Hendry when Montez Ford interrupted the crew, saying he doesn't have a problem with them, but the NXT tag team titles brought back memories of togetherness, and he's forgotten how that's felt. He reminded that they have a huge target on their backs, and Cutler James was about to drop one of his lines when the rest of Dark State ran him off the screen, so he didn't say anything. This was actually a lot more interesting than I expected. If you had just told me there was going to be a segment with Dark State and Montez Ford, you had Ford playing into the SmackDown storyline with the Wyatt Six, trying to wedge drive the Street Profits. One of the more surprising segments on the show. It didn't really do that much for Dark State. It actually advanced Montez as a character way more than it did them. So really that wraps up NXT Homecoming. I had major FOMO missing out this show because I didn't want to travel to Orlando, travel back home, and then pack and go to New York for a long trip. On one hand, it was awesome to see everyone that showed up. On the other hand, there wasn't that much memorable about it, at least not compared to the special NXT show I went to with John Cena, The Undertaker, Asuka, and others. If they had built this over a month instead of basically 1 week of build and then this, it probably would have played better. A lot of it just felt like forced appearances when the show would have been better off as a natural integration of multiple eras into a single show. Have NXT people appear on main roster and NXT, and then put them all together on a special NXT episode. In that way, this was basically just fan service, mostly outside of normal run NXT storylines. Maybe the move in the future is to do a PLE instead, or run a 3-hour special, like I said at the beginning, so there's more time to fit everything together. The point being, my FOMO dissipated when it ended, but it still would have been cool to attend this. I'm going to say one more thing here, and it really has nothing to do with the WWE programming. There was a certain commercial that aired at least once as the first commercial during every single break, sometimes twice. It was disgusting. It was extremely off-putting. I will give CW one more chance next week. If that commercial continues airing, I will no longer be watching on that network, and I will instead be watching on Netflix. It was insanely objectionable, and it's not something I'm going to stand for as a viewer. It was really, really off-putting to see it every single time this went to commercial. Even once is bad, but 7-8 commercial breaks, it was absolutely ridiculous. So let's move over to AEW. For AEW this week, I need to handle the breakdown differently. Your boy had to watch 5 hours of TV, all between Wednesday and Thursday while working and also preparing for my long trip. So we're not going to dig deep into match or promo segment breakdowns, but frankly, even if I wanted to, there really wasn't that much to say. So we're going to detail all the storylines that exist, obviously give you the complete All Out Ultimate preview. I also want to clarify, on the remainder of this show, when I say Collision, I mean last Saturday's show. When I say Dynamite, I mean the 3-hour September to Remember gimmick from Wednesday, even though that was technically split into 2 different parts. On that note, it's kind of crazy how AEW spent 3 weeks trying to be ECW, only to basically use one of their show names that they have no connection to whatsoever. And it's an owned property by WWE. They even made shirts taking off the ECF&W, which obviously they also did NXF&T. Now they have AEF&W shirts, but they did September to Remember in Canada after leaving Philadelphia. So just super weird. In terms of the weekly match relevancy grade, 9 of 14 got relevancy credit, which sounds decent on the surface at 64%. Here's the problem. 6 of those 9 were eliminators and qualifiers for thrown together pay-per-view matches. We count those because technically tournament matches are relevant. However, considering 2 were ongoing simultaneously and all of them were lazy, really, if we're being honest, 3 of 14 matches this week were relevant on a go-home to not only a pay-per-view, but the pay-per-view debut of AEW on HBO Max. So let's talk about everything that happened on these shows that we can get through rather quickly. And then, of course, we will go in detail on the AEW All Out Ultimate Preview. On Collision, Kyle O'Reilly did another comedy promo with Roderick Strong, frustrated, and Hologram standing next to them, just saying and doing nothing. O'Reilly expressed disappointment in Daniel Garcia, saying even Adam Cole called him angry about it. So that was somehow the reasoning for a tag team main event. This does not get relevancy credit when it was one-sided and completely out of thin air. John Moxley and Garcia beat Paragon in the main event of this show. There was a nice double submission spot by Death Riders in the late stages. O'Reilly got Garcia in an armbar. Mox stopped it with a stomp, and Garcia put in the Dragon Tamer for the submission win. The match was rolling along pretty damn hot before falling apart at the end. Daddy Magic after the bell screamed at Garcia, who completely ignored him. Thrilling. This being the bookend of the show was extremely weak. On Dynamite, Mox beat Strong in the show's first match. This was only relevant because it followed an irrelevant match from the prior show. Good reminder here, Strong can go. The dude is like modern day Dean Malenko, deserves more credit and more opportunities than this. Mox needed double interference to beat him. Weak going into a pay-per-view when Strong has been irrelevant as a singles performer since he lost the International Championship. On Collision, Konosuke Takeshita beat Anthony Bowens to open the odd 6-man eliminator for an AEW unified title match. He won with Raging Fire, B-level match. Jerry Lynn later confronted Bowens again, saying it's not what's missing with him, but who's missing. Max Caster then bumped into him after an open challenge we'll cover in a bit. So Bowens took out his frustrations on him. Lynn broke it up with Bowens almost punching him but stopping himself. So Lynn grabbed the mic, saying they should be a tag team again, considering they both failed as singles performers. Then the Swirl, yeah, that's a real tag team name. They came out calling Lynn pathetic for playing therapist, saying he should be working with them. Then they actually went after Lynn, who fought back with Caster helping and Bowens ultimately deciding to do the right thing after being conflicted. Lynn, who actually looked great, took out both guys before Acclaim teamed up for a double clothesline and Lynn raised their hands. I'm not against like the general basis of this storyline, but why is Jerry Lynn doing this and not Billy Gunn? How does it make sense to inject someone random from backstage into this with us as viewers supposed to believe that Bowens holds him in some reverence when they haven't interacted before last week and Billy Gunn's been with them for years? And then you consider the actual booking of this, wasting 10 months with them apart, doing nothing, only to bring them back together. AEW actually had something with Bowens as a single, and they threw it away. The Acclaimed were getting long in the tooth, so splitting them, that was the right call. Bringing them back together in theory is fine, but this, with neither having accomplished anything and both ultimately being losers, you're basically telling us you can't believe in either of these guys individually. Imagine if the Usos split and Jay never won a mid-card title, let alone the World Championship, let alone participated in major matches and main events. These guys have done none of those things. This is just a straight-up failure. On Collision, Kazuchika Okada beat Michael Oku in the next title eliminator. Okada participating in a qualifier despite being the actual champion. There was no reason given for Oku getting this opportunity, and all we saw was a quick promo between them as part of a video package that preceded Okada's entrance. At least this only went 9 minutes. On Dynamite, Mascara Dorada beat Beast Mortos in the final eliminator. It was tied for best match on the show, a 10-minute mini banger in the B+ range. Okada came out with Don Callis to confront after. Then Takeshita came out, and he stared down Okada. Dorada, I think, splashed Okada, and then stood face-to-face with Takeshita. That was it. That's the build. On Dynamite, Young Bucks beat Bang Bang Gang to qualify for a ridiculous tag team title match that we'll talk about in the Ultimate Preview. They also got a backstage segment flashing the cash they won. They came out back to their EVP entrance, even though they're not EVPs anymore. So that gimmick died a quick death like bum-ass Corbin, except that one was actually entertaining. On Dynamite, Jet Speed beat Luchasaurus, still called Killswitch, despite turning on Christian. And Kip Sabian in the second qualifier. This was a legitimately bad match. Also on Dynamite, Hechicero and Josh Alexander beat Top Flight in the final qualifier. Better match overall. Alexander just teams with whomever in Don Callis' family. Now he gets a tag team title match out of this. What are we doing? On Collision, Megan Bayne, Penelope Ford, and Triangle of Madness beat Harley Cameron, Jamie Hayter, Chris Statlander, and TJ in another idiotic $500,000 money match. $500,000 for them to fight a match they fought for free for the last 3 months. If I had the time, I'd go through how many consecutive weeks there have been all-star tags and or money matches and or 6 to 8 to 10 women tags for no reason whatsoever. It's lazy ass booking. But apparently, according to Tony Schiavone, no one can do better than Tony Khan. Tony Storm was on commentary for this in a pre-match segment. Stat insisted she's not involved with the Death Riders. Thekla got the win given she was randomly made a number one contender for Storm's title and needed elevation. The women brawled after the bell. So get this. Mina Shirakawa and Queen Aminata run out together with an igloo cooler and a spatula. This is because they're doing a tailgate brawl countdown match of some kind. So they lightly tap the cooler on a couple people's heads and then lightly slap the spatula on a couple asses. It looked ridiculous. Storm then jumped on the announce table and said, "Brawl, bitches," before splashing and brawling with everyone. It was frankly ridiculous. Thekla's whole deal, by the way, of taking 60 seconds to bend over like a spider while her opponent just stands there looking like an idiot so she can then get out of the position clunkily and actually deliver offense. It lacks believability to such a ridiculous degree. She spams it like Montez Ford doing a crotch chop. On Dynamite, Thekla beat Queen Aminata in a no-holds-barred match. Why was this no-holds-barred? Because, obviously. Why did this specific match happen? No reason. I guess Aminata punched her one time on Collision, so therefore they had this. And also on Collision, FTR needed 17 minutes. 17 minutes to beat Adam Pearce and Tommy Billington. I said Pearce. It's Adam Priest and Tommy Billington. The wrestling was solid, bell-to-bell, B-match. This was excruciatingly long. So that wraps up kind of everything else that was happening on AEW. Let's move to the AEW All Out Ultimate Preview. This is an extremely strange card, and it actually makes me miss when All Out was closer to All In, because that required storylines to be much tighter across the board. They would do something on All In that played into a match on All Out. So we're going to take our match relevancy a step further this week by determining whether each match on this pay-per-view is actually fully relevant in storyline or just something that was thrown together for the show. This slightly differs from our take on WWE WrestlePalooza, where there were also match-building issues, but only one match on that card that was blatantly thrown together without any effort for storyline. So let's go through this. There are 3 tailgate brawl matches. All of these were announced ahead of time because this thing is, I think, airing on TNT. That way they can try to get people to buy the pay-per-view on HBO Max. So instead of announcing this like Friday or Saturday, they did it Wednesday on Dynamite. Katsuyori Shibata against Daniel Garcia thrown together, despite it being their third meeting. I suppose Garcia wins, given he was the one that they're telling a story about. Garcia over Shibata. Can you imagine? Samoa Joe and Powerhouse Hobbs against the Workhorsemen thrown together. Obviously. Are you kidding me? The Workhorsemen? The Ops win. Why are all 3 Ops fighting on the tailgate brawl, but they couldn't do a storyline for the trios titles? Then an 8-woman tag also on the tailgate brawl. From the standpoint that we've seen 6, 8, and 10 women tags involving many of these same people on AEW TV for months, it's not thrown together. From the standpoint that it's just 8 women fighting each other without any rhyme or reason, and it's not even the people who are involved in the segment on Collision, it is thrown together, and it's been that way for months now. So it's actually insulting, this match. Since it's a pay-per-view kickoff, I'm going to go with the face side that has Willow Nightingale on it. What a waste of her talent being involved in this shit. That brings us to the actual card, which is 10 matches. The Tag Team Championship, Brodito defending against Young Bucks, Jet Speed, Hechicero, and Josh Alexander in a ladder match. Perhaps the most thrown together bout on the entire main card, randomly announcing qualification matches that weren't held until the go-home Dynamite, a ladder match stipulation for no actual reason, no effort to develop a storyline for your brand new tag team champions, despite plenty of time between the 2 shows. AEW was supposed to be a bastion for tag team wrestling. Meanwhile, neither the 2 nor 3-man teams get any booking whatsoever. Terrible stuff. But according to Tony Schiavone, no one can do better. There was a brawl between these teams at the end of Dynamite. That was it. Prediction, Brodito retains. They just won the titles. What sense would it make for them to drop them? If anyone was going to beat them, the Young Bucks, but I just do not see that happening. Hurt Business is going to fight Ricochet and Gates of Agony. This is a relevant match with a storyline that dates back to All In. Really, it dates back before it, if you want to talk about the initial sprinkling of reason for it. So we had on Dynamite, Bobby Lashley beat Toa Leona, and he needed 10 minutes to do it. Wish it was a little bit shorter. MVP cold cocked Ricochet ringside, which was awesome. But the other GOA guy, he did absolutely nothing about it. He literally just stood around watching it happen. He didn't respond by fighting back. Then, because he didn't do anything, he got super kicked like a minute later by Shelton Benjamin. Lashley Ultimate won via Hurt Lock knockout, because heaven forbid they pinned Toa Leona. MVP murdered Ricochet with his cane after the bell. He got chance. He was the best part of the segment by far. This was probably my favorite match on the entire show. B plus range. And of course,
Big meaty man slapping meat. That's what I want.
So the prediction for this is actually my most difficult on the entire show, because this isn't WWE. So the guys who stand tall on the go home aren't necessarily more likely to lose, but MVP is there to potentially take the fall. And Ricochet and Gates of Agony, they're the new trio that actually needs elevation. So really both of these teams should be going after the trios titles, because if you have the Ops against the Hurt Business or Ricochet and the Gates of Agony in a triple threat or a couple different 3-on-3 matches, trios matches, then that's real compelling. Those are three interesting teams that you can get behind, that you can do some, creative stuff with. So my hope is that Ricochet and Gates of Agony win. I think you have Lashley and Benjamin get taken out, and you have these guys pin MVP, who doesn't get hurt at all by losing. I have a feeling Hurt Business will win, but I'm actually going to go with my gut on what makes the most creative sense, and that would be Ricochet and Gates of Agony winning. So they're my prediction here, my surprise prediction for the show. Eddie Kingston against Big Bill, thrown together out of thin air. On Collision, Bill squashed Max Caster in another open challenge. This shit with Caster has been going on for 10 months. 10. Too shy of a calendar year.
A 10! A fucking 10!
Gentlemen.
Bill called out Kingston after, saying fans only like him because he looks like them. In other words, out of shape. Then he talked shit about Japanese wrestling legends and officially made the challenge that we knew was coming. It wasn't a terrible promo in a vacuum. Extremely basic, nothing wrong with it. Bill cut another promo on Dynamite saying he saw the match was official for the show, but he wouldn't believe it until Kingston is actually in the ring since he's been on the couch for 16 months. Bill promised to expose him. This was much better than the Collision promo, even if it was kind of similar. The more significant issue is completely wasting Kingston's return in a storyline that came out of nowhere without any relevance when there could have been a surprise pop utilized. Maybe because you, guess what, have Darby Allin fighting Jon Moxley. Kingston comes back and gets Darby's back because Claudio Castagnoli interferes or something like that. There's a million things they could have done to bring Kingston back to AEW. And you're doing this? Come on. Unified Championship, Kazuchika Okada, Konosuke Takeshita, Mascara Dorada, clearly thrown together. They had the champion Okada in an eliminator to qualify for his own title match on the pay-per-view. This despite the dude beating Kenny Omega to unify the titles. In what world should he need to qualify for anything or defend his title, really, before actually defending his title at the pay-per-view? Takeshita is in his faction. They've been at odds, but not with an actual storyline reason. It's just, you're good and I'm good, and I dislike you because of that. And Mascara Dorada was just thrown in here. That said, athletically and from a match quality standpoint, I'm going to be legitimately shocked if this is not my match of the day for AEW. I think this thing, top to bottom, is going to be an absolute
Banger!
Okada retains. If he's going to lose to Takeshita, which he should eventually, it needs to be one-on-one fully to put the guy over as the future. And because I think Takeshita is about to be the next IWGP World Heavyweight Champion for New Japan, it does not make sense to double strap him up like that. Dorada is clearly here to take the fall from Okada. TBS Championship, Mercedes Moné against Riho. One of the most thrown together matches on the entire card. Riho was gone for over a year. She lightly made a save on TV and suddenly got a pay-per-view title match without winning, earning. I mean, they announced it, I think, on the same show. An absolute joke of a booking and just more fodder for Mercedes. On Dynamite, Riho beat Rob and Renegade, which was a total joke in its own right. Typical AEW, giving an undeserving number one contender a squash win to try and legitimize them as worthy of getting the match after they're already named a contender. It's so bad. Renegade basically helped Monet attack her. She had a backstabber. That was literally it. That's the entire build. Adam Copeland and Christian Cage are going to fight FTR. Relevant match with an immensely uninteresting build, but relevant nonetheless. On Dynamite, there was an in-ring confrontation with fines preventing physicality. Way too much Shivani and Stokely talking. FTR said they're the best. They're living legends, a generational team. They've carried the division across multiple companies. We've heard this time and time again. It's the same thing over and over. It's like missionary position every single night.
It's the same thing over and over and over. It's like missionary position every single night.
But I did like that they mentioned some of their WWE and NXT matches. So they're not just trying to claim they're the greatest in AEW. They're saying, we've been doing this shit for over a decade. Copeland then said he came to AEW to work with them, and they're not in the spotlight anymore because fans are rejecting them. He claimed that they've been legends for decades and created a match that became a pay-per-view. We'll forget about the fact that it really was the Hardy Boys and the Dudley Boys. That was why that match happened. But okay, yes, you guys created it. The Faces attacked anyway, saying they didn't care about the fines. Dax Harwood somehow got busted open hard way in seconds. Must have taken like a big shot to the face or something. The fans loved it. The segment was hot. It was in Canada. Did I love it? Not really. Was it anything to chew on from a content standpoint? Not really. I do think this match is going to be quality when we ultimately get to All Out. And I have Copeland and Christian Cage winning here. FTR definitely could. They could rematch it to a stipulation. No question. But it is in Toronto. This is really the match that you have the Canadians win. So Copeland and Cage, big pop for them at the show coming in and then coming out as well as the winners. Women's Championship, Toni Storm defending against Jamie Hayter, Chris Statlander, and Thekla thrown together. They took women who were involved in the 25-woman mix and match tag team storyline and had Storm just like pick a few to get a title match with whom she happened to be in the ring with one night. Hayter and Thekla have done nothing to deserve it. Stat's been involved in a regular storyline, but not really with Storm. I suppose Hayter could possibly win here, but it really wouldn't make that much sense to do it out of a four-way. So for me, the winner is obvious, and that's going to be Toni Storm. I actually jumped ahead to my prediction, and I forgot to mention what happened on Dynamite. Storm, she did her standard innuendo nickname promo. She also dropped, just for, the cherry on top of the Silver King shit Sunday, where the best wrestle.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Saying the other women should cremate her, pack her ashes into a pipe, and smoke her because no one can get them higher than she can. I loved that line. Easily the best line Tony said in probably since the Mercedes Moné feud. Hayter stepped into the spotlight, grabbed the mic, saying her tagline. Then Stat literally said, I have nothing to say, except you guys don't have ovaries. Like, I swear, that's what she said. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand what was happening here. Then she said her tagline. Tony told them to shave their bushes. Then Thekla just came out in jeans for the match that we already talked about. She finally spoke for the first time after that match, just kind of yelling. Storm attacked her. Triangle of Madness saved. Hayter showed up but didn't do anything. They got separated. Stat was nowhere to be found. This was awful, man. Awful. This gimmick jumped the shark a long ass time ago, and the week to week of it, it's just becoming cringe-inducing for me at this point. I'm glad other people enjoy it. It's entirely not for me. I find Toni compelling when she's involved in a real storyline, like with Mariah May or Mercedes Moné, not shit like this. Maybe she should only fight people who have M's as initials at this point. I don't know. Like I said, Storm's going to retain. The clear move is to get to Storm and Hayter in a longer-term feud, and Jamie is the right person to take the title off of her eventually, but she needs a lot of help from like a character positioning standpoint just to be deserving of that push and deserving of the title. Mark Briscoe against MJF in a stipulation match, the most relevant match on the entire card. Multi-month storyline culminating in a stipulation on an important show. Pretty well done too, even if it's rather basic. MJF on Collision cut a normal shit heel promo on Briscoe, talking down to him as blue collar because he's white collar and white collar always wins. Briscoe appeared on the smallest screen I've ever seen at a wrestling show. I think my living room TV is bigger than it. Anyway, he said the stipulation would be thumbtacks and tables in a no disqualification match. It being a pre-tape allowed Briscoe to attack from behind and dump out thumbtacks, but MJF escaped. The segment was okay. The stipulation for me leaves a lot to be desired. I thought Briscoe would do something unique to him. Instead, it's just two things we see all the time in AEW. If this was WWE, you could plausibly believe that Briscoe would win the match because Money in the Bank briefcase holders frequently lose before they cash in. However, given MJF is basically a number one contender lying in wait, and he's the main eventer, whereas Briscoe is mostly a mid-carder, I have MJF winning this. There was also promotion on Collision for a title versus mask match between MJF and Mystico that's happening in Mexico this Friday. Some Mexican Abraham Lincoln looking dude was with MJF, which was completely unexplained. I did appreciate AEW actually promoting something for CMLL, which they really have not done for their partners in the past. Now, because MJF cannot appear on consecutive shows, on Dynamite, we saw footage from Collision of him storming into Tony Khan's trailer. The camera was on the outside, yet somehow there was full audio inside. MJF complained that he got screwed out of his contract stipulation, and since Tony owed him one, he should pull him from this match. Khan yelled back in the least convincing fashion ever, talking about the integrity of professional wrestling. So MJF said he'd put another Briscoe into the dirt. I actually really liked the concept of this segment, even if Tony himself was hysterically bad. We had Darby Allin against Jon Moxley in a coffin match, the second most relevant match on the entire card. It would be the most relevant if Darby didn't piss off for months while the other baby faces fought his battles. But since he's come back, it's been a concerted build to get to this point. Unfortunately, Mox has not been given the chance to cut promos here to the level he did to build the match with Hangman Page. In terms of interest in seeing the match and learning the result, this hits in every way, and it's the number one match I'm most interested in watching going into AEW All Out. Bryan Danielson interviewed Darby on Dynamite. They spent half the time talking about Mount Everest and other adjacent shit. Allen made Danielson give his word not to get involved in the match, even if Darby holds himself accountable for what happened to Bryan getting asphyxiated at WrestleDream. Bryan promised not to get involved, but he asked Darby to make a promise as well, which he whispered into his ear. This was a shitty interview in that it didn't preview the match. It didn't give you any more reason to watch it. But there was an interesting twist with the secret. It seems pretty clear they're building to Danielson returning against Mox at some point. I like him on commentary either way. This does seem to be an A plus B equals C situation. This, for me, is the main event of All Out. I wish they hadn't burned the lights out gimmick for the last show, because that would have been a perfect way to ensure this went on last after the AEW championship. This is also my second most difficult match on the entire show to predict, because Moxley won so much for so long that you say, why would he lose the title to Hangman and then immediately lose to Darby? Also, he just brought a new person in Daniel Garcia into his faction. So how do you have him lose two major matches in a row and then try to be like this top dog in AEW with a dominating faction? It's really tough to kind of do that. But then you have Darby, who was not the one to dethrone Moxley as champion. And he did do the Mount Everest thing and, didn't get any AEW, any publicity, but it's certainly something that was a big deal. And you brought him back in a major way in that match. And this is the only match for Darby Allin right now. It's not like he can lose to Mox and then elevate himself up to the AEW title because he has an ongoing feud or, he has legitimate contention for that. He doesn't. So the only way for this to kind of continue, as far as I'm concerned, is for Darby to win and for Mox to get his lick back. If Mox wins this, it's got to be done, right? Now, there is the stipulation where it's a coffin match, and that is basically no disqualification, de facto. And there's a faction in the Death Riders against Darby Allin, an individual, and now Bryan Danielson can't get involved. The ops do exist. They can help Darby, but is he really going to be at this on his own trying to beat this guy in a coffin match? The other thing to consider is that because it's a coffin match, no one's getting pinned. So Darby can win this without Mox taking the 1, 2, 3. All he has to do is hit the, I'm forgetting the name of his finisher right now, coffin drop into the coffin. It should have been easy to remember given the stipulation. Hit the coffin drop into the coffin. The lid closes on both of them. He climbs out first and he wins. So I'm going to have Darby win this match. That's my prediction. It's also who really should win. Mox won't be hurt by taking another L, but I wouldn't be surprised if it goes the other way. And lastly, AEW Championship, Hangman Page defending against Kyle Fletcher. This one is in the middle for me. It's thrown together in that Don Callis and Fletcher randomly decided they wanted a title match. It's thrown together in that Fletcher is the latest other champion in AEW to go after another one of the top titles for reasons. It's thrown together in that the build for it has been the same as so many other AEW builds. I'm the AEW champion. Okay, sure, but I'm the future this company needs. Okay, I think you are the future, I agree, but you need to prove yourself. How about we have people who fight for themselves and not for a company? But it's relevant in that AEW has spent a few weeks with segments between these guys building the match because it is the main event of the show. So I'm going to give it relevancy credit for this exercise, even if it's super weak. On Dynamite, there was a contract signing with Callis praising Fletcher as the next big thing and Hangman demanding the family be banned from ringside. Page also went on about Fletcher needing to prove he's worthy of being the future of AEW. Told you. Fletcher talked about Page like he was 44, not 34. To be fair, Hangman warned him, don't disappoint me, like he was his father or some shit. The best part of this was the end. Fletcher saying they wouldn't get physical at the contract signing and Don Callis family wouldn't be there ringside for the match, but he would still leave Page beaten and bloodied before the show was over. That was really, really strong for Fletcher. The end of Dynamite featured that tag team brawl, which brought Hangman out and then Fletcher. My show got cut off, so I had no overrun. I had to watch social media clips. Based on those, Page seemed to snuff out Fletcher trying to attack. But then somehow, again, I'm only looking at clips, Fletcher got the upper hand. He countered Buckshot Lariat with a title shot and put Hangman through a ringside table with a brainbuster off the apron. So he delivered as promised to end the show. It was kind of funny that Hangman came out really for no reason in this segment, only so that Fletcher could deliver on his promise at the end of the day. But I'd say it was decently hot as a close, despite hour 3 of that show, September to Remember, being awful. It's like somehow, even when it's together, Dynamite and Collision, when they do that occasionally a couple times a year, whatever the portion is that's Collision is bad. It's booked to be worse. They refuse to like extend the quality of Dynamite to the third hour, even though it's all basically a one-run show. So in terms of AEW, prediction for this, Hangman Page is retaining the title. Unless he's injured, there's no situation in which Kyle Fletcher should be the champion after Page just beat Jon Moxley for the championship. I can't imagine it. So Hangman wins, and the predictability of some of these matches, Hangman winning, Tony retaining, Mercedes retaining, so on and so forth, in addition to them being thrown together, in addition to the lack of storytelling. When you go through the card, it's like, why do I want to order this, right? Why do I want to spend $50? And that gets me to the last point. 50% of the matches on the main card are relevant. 50% of them are thrown together, plus 3 thrown together matches on the pre-show. For a Dynamite, 50%, that's what we come to expect. For a pay-per-view, that's lazy ass booking. So again, would I purchase this show as a fan? No, I would not. Not a chance. They have not given me anywhere near enough reason as a viewer to invest $50 into this product. I saw people crowing, oh my God, this card is loaded. To what end is this card loaded? Yeah, there's 10 matches, and there's a great chance that there's 4 or 5 tremendous in-ring wrestling matches. But in terms of compelling content, there are 4 matches I'm actually invested in seeing. Mox and Darby, MJF and Briscoe, Hurt Syndicate and Ricochet's crew, to my surprise, plus the unified triple threat, simply because, again, I am expecting it to be a straight up banger. The rest of this card, the other 6 matches on main, the 3 matches on the kickoff, why am I supposed to care about any of them? Because I don't. So that is where we leave the AEW All Out Ultimate Preview, and that brings us to a pre-show expectation grade. Normally, when it's WWE or AEW, it doesn't really matter. Pay-per-views and premium live events, they tend to over-deliver their booking, especially with AEW when it comes to the match quality. But match quality alone is not enough for me to kind of come in and say, this is going to be a great show. As you can tell, I'm down on this show. I think there may be good matches, but it's not compelling. And unless there's some surprises or shock title changes or something like that, I just don't see this being, I think it might be the worst AEW pay-per-view of the year. Again, not talking about match quality, just like compelling content. So I'm coming in. This is my lowest pre-show expectation grade for any brand and any individual show in a long time. I'm going to come in at a B, and I'm going to say an 86 out of 100. I'm going to give the highest B possible, because when it does come to AEW, even when shows are not booked well from a creative standpoint, the match quality is usually high enough where it over-delivers. And therefore, I think it's really easy for them to get to a B+, extremely easy to get to an A-. I cannot imagine, unless there is shockers of all shockers, that this thing could even come close to approaching A territory. But that is my expectation grade. You will have the opportunity to give your pre-show expectation grade, both for AEW All Out and WWE WrestlePalooza on Saturday by following us on social media at Getting Overcast. Specifically, the pre-show and post-show polls for All Out and WrestlePalooza will be posted on our Twitter at Getting Overcast. When you follow us there, you get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights, and all of that good stuff. You can also send in questions and comments for the show that we will read on the air. And while I singled out Twitter there, of course, you can also follow us at Blue Sky, again, at Getting Overcast. We just don't have a poll function over there, or else we would integrate that into everything. Getting Overcast is also where you can find us on YouTube. You get full-length audio episodes and full-length video interviews. Now, on the way out, a little quick conversation about our schedule moving forward. The goal right now is to give you 2 instant analysis podcasts on Saturday. The first for AEW All Out, which hopefully, fingers crossed, theoretically, should end in enough time that I can create an entire show before WWE WrestlePalooza begins. And I say that because WWE WrestlePalooza airs the same time as a very important football game for me, the Florida Gators against the Miami Hurricanes. And that is what my priority is going to be on Saturday. I have to watch that first. So if I can get All Out of the way, then you'll get an instant analysis before that game and before WrestlePalooza begins. If I don't have the time to get it out, frankly, I just don't know when I'm going to be able to tape it or when I'm going to be able to publish it. So it could come out Saturday. It could come out Sunday, Monday. I don't know. Either way, you will have an instant analysis from AEW All Out. You'll also have one from WWE WrestlePalooza. That one will be much easier for me to get out. It's only 5 matches. It's a lot shorter. Be able to watch it quicker probably as well. That should come out Saturday or Sunday. I'd be shocked if it didn't. But in terms of the AEW show, I just don't know. I'm going to do the absolute best I can to deliver performance-enhancing audio to your ear holes. On that note, the following 2 weeks, Silver King will be out of town in New York, away from home. Equipment-wise, the show is going to sound different. Timing-wise, when shows, episodes get published, I don't know when that's going to be. We will try to do everything timely. I will definitely have every single episode for you. It's just possible it's delayed. Tuesday show comes out Wednesday, Thursday show comes out Friday, or maybe not, or maybe they come out exactly the same day and time they always do. But what you can do is follow us on social media at Getting Overcast, Blue Sky, and Twitter, and we will inform you both when the shows are coming and when they actually go live. So that is extra reason to follow us on social media this week and, of course, going forward. On the way out, let me hit you with a couple more reminders. First, the Getting Over Wrestling podcast
It's all about Defy.
So head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. And second,
I happen to love the number 5.
Sure hope you do as well. $5 a month, $50 for the entire year. You can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. Again, that is buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. All right, that wraps it up for this edition of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. This is the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, signing off and leaving you with just 3 final words. Bye for now.